Namaste everybody and welcome to the beach. This is going to be video 1 of our 6-week program for namastand. It's going to just start with very basic poses and we're going to show 3 different modifications: chair, stool, and blocks. It's not going to be really a flow this first time. We're really just going to show you how to get into these poses and you want to practice them on your own. And then next week we'll kind of add a little bit more of a flow with some modifications and we'll build on it for 6 weeks. So everybody get ready. If you don't have some of these props, you can easily get them or you can easily modify them. So the blocks that I use are just little styrofoam blocks. I get them on Amazon for $5–10 bucks. Or you can even use just really anything that's got about a 3-inch height to them. But that's also getting more into the advanced. So if you have a stool, it doesn't matter the height, or a chair, it doesn't matter the height. Get something that's comfortable for you and modify to what is comfortable for you. So we're gonna get started with some of our more basic poses and we'll move through a few. It's gonna be a short video and hopefully you enjoy. And remember, namaste beaches. Right, guys, so we're gonna start in a standing position and we're gonna start with our very easiest modifications for some poses. And that's gonna be with a chair. So I have a slightly taller chair. You can have whatever height that you see fit. We're gonna start with some standing poses and then slowly move to the ground, and then we'll modify a few of them with the stool and the blocks. So get ready, and we're gonna get into a few poses here, and just be prepared. We'll go through a few of these very basic poses. So starting out, we're gonna start with our tall mountain. It really depends on how you would choose to stand. So tall mountain is just standing straight like this. The chair can be however you see fit. A lot of people prefer to have the back to you, and that is what I would recommend. So to start out, we're gonna start with tall mountain, and that is normally with our hands up, but some people have a little bit challenge balancing. Your feet can be together or apart, and all you're gonna do is start with a few seconds of breathing in this pose. It's a very easy, basic pose, but it's a great warm-up pose. So we're gonna sit here for just a few seconds, and you're just gonna get yourself grounded. Some people really do have some issues with balance, and this is a perfect way to start. So you can either have both hands on the chair or just one hand, or hover your hands above the chair. And we're just gonna sit here for a few breaths and get ourselves prepped and ready, or centered, as they say in the yogi world. So for here, we're gonna start a few breaths in and a few breaths out. Wonderful. A few more breaths here. If you feel a little wobbly, that's totally fine. If you're feeling pretty good, then maybe you just kind of shift your weight back and forth on foot to challenge your balance a little bit. So you can even pick one foot up if you want to do just a little bit more advanced. Great. So now we're going to do kind of a modified forward fold. Place your hands on the back of your chair. You're going to take a few steps back and you're just going to forward fold, holding onto the chair to help with your balance. If you want to advance it a little bit, you can hover your hands or even drop them off to the side. On a few breaths here, we're going to inhale and rise all the way back up. Your hands can still be on the chair or you can drop them off to the side, whatever is more comfortable for you. Place your hands back or hover them above the chair again, and we're going to take a nice forward fold. A big breath in and a big breath out. Wonderful. And then we're going to rise back up. Hands can come off to the side or you can keep them hovered on the chair. The most important part about forward folding, especially if you have back problems or you're not used to folding, is to not arch or hinge your back too much. Keep your stomach tight and only come to where you feel comfortable. You don't have to get this far low. Maybe you're just here, your glutes, your butt cheeks are engaged and your stomach is engaged. And then we're gonna rise all the way back up. So we've done a few forward folds now. Wonderful. So the next one that we normally do is down dog. So normally down dog is in this pose right here, but that can be a little bit too advanced because it puts a lot of pressure and needs a lot of strength in the shoulders. So how we modify is we use our chair. Make sure your chair is not gonna slip as we do this. So we have an option of the back of the chair and we just put a little bit more pressure, but unlike forward fold, we're engaging our shoulders. We're holding part of our body up by putting pressure on this chair. If this is really easy, then you can flip the chair back and you put both of your hands on it and you just step back. You want to kind of poke your butt out and put most of your pressure in your hands, and you're just going to slide forward a little bit and then send your butt back. And you're going to slide forward a little bit and send your butt back. This is obviously a very modified version of down dog, but the hope is that if you continue to work on this pose right here, you can really get yourself prepped and ready for the next evolution of down dog, which we'll show you here in a few minutes. Wonderful. And you can walk yourself up back to the top of the mat. You can have that chair there ready to balance, or try a little bit of balancing without using the chair. Wonderful. So the next one we're going to get into is chair pose. My chair is a little bit higher than what would normally be recommended, but again, the lower we get into a pose, the more challenging it is for your muscles. So if you feel like you're ready for a very low chair, get a lower stool, and I'll show you that one next. But if you're not quite prepped for chair, there's two different modifications with a chair height that we can do. So our first modification is we turn away from the chair, we put our hands up, and we just hinge at the hips and touch our butt. We're not going to sit in the chair. You're going to touch your butt to the rim of the chair and stand back up. Now, of course, this chair is really high, so maybe that's what you need, or maybe you need a slightly lower chair to get strength. But what's most important is your arms are up, you're hinging at the hips, and you're touching the rim of the chair and rising back up. Get a chair height that's comfortable for you. So we're going to do about 5 of these. So we're hinging, touch, stand back up. Engage the quads, the glutes, the hamstrings. Hinge again, touch, lift back up. Good. 3 more. Hinge and stand back up. Wonderful. Hinge and stand back up. 1 more. Hinge and stand back up. Wonderful. Now the next modification that is a little bit more advanced depending on your chair height is we flip that chair back around and we hold, instead of our arms coming up, we're going to hold the back of this chair, we're going to hinge at our hips, and we're going to sit into our glutes. Now, this is the nice part about holding onto a chair, so you can have a little bit of support, so you can get a little lower. Get as low as what's comfortable, but make sure you get to where you're able to come back up. But that's where you'll use your hands and shoulders to raise yourself back up. So you'll hinge, you'll find a spot, let's say this is as low as you want to go. Try not to push off on the chair, but if you need some help, you help yourself up. Let's do 5 of these, as low as you're comfortable going, and then help yourself back up. Good. Hinge as low as you're ready. This time maybe try not use your hands as much, even hover them above the chair. Good. Let's do a few more of these. And right back up. Wonderful. 2 more. Great. And right back up. Wonderful. Last one. We'll go down as low as what's comfortable. Help yourself up as much as you need. Great. That's great. So some of our more basic poses: mountain, down dog, and chair pose. So now we're going to get into a few of our other more normal poses, which is going to include Warrior 2. It's a very common pose. You're going to put your right foot at the top of your mat and take a step back as far as what's comfortable. Some people like to take a really big step. This back arch is going to be perpendicular with your mat. Now, this here, so you're going to have your chair here again. Your right hand's going to be on that chair, that left is raising up. This is for support. You take a step as comfortable as you need. So maybe you're just here. The most important part is you have a little bend in that front knee. If you only have 2 feet between feet, your 2 feet here in between your legs, that's great. I'm going to take a little bit of a wider stance, but essentially you're holding here, you're using this right arm to help protect yourself from falling. So you're going to hold this Warrior 2 for a few breaths. You should feel these thighs engaging here, your foot is engaging. You should even engage your shoulder blades just a little bit by squeezing them back, and you're putting a little bit of weight here in your hand. We're going to take a few more breaths here. If you feel like your thigh's burning, step out of it. If you feel like you want to challenge yourself, stay here for a few. Great. And then you're just using that chair for balance. Step to the top of your mat. Wonderful. So now we're going to switch sides. That left hand stays on the back of the chair, and your right foot is going to step back perpendicular. Take as big or as little of a step as you want, and you're going to rise those arms up, and you're squeeze those shoulder blades together. You're going to hold on to this chair as much as you need. Again, if you feel like this is easy and you want to challenge yourself, lift that hand up, just hover it over the chair so it's there in case you need it, but you're challenging yourself. We're just gonna take a few breaths here. Big breath in and out. Wonderful. And then use that chair if you want, or don't use it, and step back to the top of the mat. Wonderful. So that's warrior two. Very easy, very simple, gets you moving, engages everything. The next thing that we're gonna do is triangle pose. So a traditional triangle pose is similar to warrior two, but you're extending that front leg and we're coming all the way forward. Now, we may not be ready for that. So extend that front leg, but I want you to have to reach for that chair. So in warrior two, it's really right here, but I want you to be able to extend that leg, so you have to reach for that chair. The reason we're reaching is we're engaging our abs. So you're gonna reach for that chair. If up tall, like the highest point of the chair is comfortable, great. Or reach for a little lower and send that left arm up, or even reach a little lower. Whatever is most comfortable for you. I'm gonna come to that middle one, but your abs should be engaged, meaning your core shouldn't be floppy. You should be tightening that core, your belly button to your spine. Your left arm comes up, and we're just gonna sit here for a few breaths. Wonderful. And then we're gonna rise back up, using as much of the chair as you need. You can bend that front knee again. We're back into warrior two, and we're gonna step to the top of the mat. Wonderful. Once again, we're gonna get back into our triangle pose on the other side. So we're gonna take that right foot, step back. And again, I want you to challenge yourself, straightening that leg so you have to reach forward towards that chair. We have option one, which is at the highest part of the chair, option two, which is at the middle ground, or three, which is at the lowest. And again, the chair is here for your support. If you wanna try and get all the way into triangle pose, go for it. If not, stay at what's comfortable for you. Abs are engaged. And we're just holding it for a few. You use the chair for support as much as possible. Each time we meet, I'm gonna encourage you to use it less and less. Wonderful. We come back up, sink into warrior two, and we step to the top of the mat. Wonderful. So that's another very common pose you'll see, one of our much more beginner poses. We're gonna get into a few balancing postures. Balance is very important for many things, but particularly as we get older, balance tends to get down a little bit, and part of that is our core stability and our ability to balance. So I always recommend a few balance postures, but let's protect ourselves with this chair. So we're gonna get into what we call a tree pose. Normal tree pose is, so you're gonna, let's say tree pose on the right side. You're gonna ground through the right foot, that left foot comes to the inside of the thigh, and we raise all the way up. This is normal tree pose. Then we have a slightly easier where we put it on the inside of our shin, or all the way down to where our foot is on the floor like a kickstand. So what I want you to do is start with right hand on the chair, and I want you to just work on tapping away from the body and then tapping your inside ankle. So tree pose here. Your left hand can be on your hip or your chest, or even up tall if you want to get a little crazy. Whatever modification you want to do. I'm going to keep my hand up tall, but basically we're going to tap away from you and tap your ankle. Tap away from you and tap your ankle. Good. One more time here. And then once we hit that regular tree pose, we're gonna stay here for a few minutes of balance, or a few seconds of balance. Few breaths in, breathing the whole time. Use this chair as much as you need to. Great. And then we're gonna unwind, and I'm gonna turn away from the camera so you can see the other side. So left hand on the chair, right hand can be on your hip, near your chest, or up in the air. I'm gonna keep mine up in the air. You're gonna first kickstand, so your toe comes, your inside of your foot comes to the ankle. Then you're gonna tap away from you and come back. Tap away from you and come back. Good, let's do a few more of these. All the weight is in your left foot or in your left hand or both. Good, one more. Then we're gonna stand in just a modified tree pose for a few breaths. Big breath in and out, in and out. Wonderful, and we're gonna come to the top of the mat. Great, so that's our very easy starting with a chair. We're gonna move on to the next modifications for some of these postures. So I'm gonna move this chair out of the way, which is going to be our stool. So our stool is obviously a little bit lower. You pick the height of the stool that you want. And we're gonna get into a few of these postures using the stool. So we started with tall mountain. So normally tall mountain with the chair, our hands were here. In this one, we're not using it at all. So this is obviously a little bit more challenging. This is the only modification for tall mountain that I'll show. So I'm not gonna show you with the blocks. So here for tall mountain, we're going to just balance. Hands can be at our side or up by our ears, but this is obviously slightly more advanced in the aspect that we don't have a safety measure like the chair to grab onto. So if you're not ready for this one, go back to the chair. So from here, we're gonna balance. Your feet can preferably be as close together as possible. And we're just gonna balance with our hands off to the side. We're just gonna sit here for a few, balancing. A few breaths in and a few breaths out. Wonderful. Then we're gonna take some of our forward folds. So this one is, the other chair was real up tall, so the stool's a little lower. So you're gonna place your hands on the stool and you're just gonna forward fold using your hands to lift you back up. Forward fold and lifting back up. Again, we're going through a few of these. You're just using the stool as an ability to keep yourself from falling over. Wonderful. Take a few more here. And we'll meet in tall mountain. Wonderful. So that's just kind of a modification for the stool. It's just a little added safety precaution, but nothing too crazy compared to a normal forward fold. So for down dog in this one, again, down dog's normally full on the mat. Make sure your stool is not gonna slide, but you're gonna put weight in your hands and you're gonna step back and put pressure in your shoulders using this stool. So this is getting a lot more advanced, but it's not a full down dog and you can easily pull yourself out of it if you need to. So this is just a little bit easier on the shoulders and it's a lot easier to be able to walk your feet towards your hands if you need to. So we're gonna take a few what we call sun salutations. If you want the chair, same idea, you just use the chair instead. So we're going to inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, put your hands on the stool or on your chair. And you're just gonna take a few steps back, come into down dog. And then you're just gonna kind of shift forward into a modified plank pose. You can come as far forward as you see fit, so this is like a plank pose, or you just shift to where your shoulders can handle it, and then send yourself right back to down dog. Then you're gonna look towards the top of your mat, and you're just gonna slowly walk yourself to the top of the mat for a forward fold once again. And then inhale, we'll come into mountain. Wonderful. So next thing that we have is chair pose. So obviously this stool is a little bit lower, but you're at this stage, it means you're wanting to challenge yourself. So I recommend turning away from the stool. If you're still on the chair, we have our modifications, which is in front of us or behind us. So for this one, arms come up if you have the stool, and we're gonna come all the way down, touch that stool, and come back up. Good, we're gonna do 5 of these. So obviously if we start to lose our balance, we're easily able to sit back down into the stool, but hopefully we can keep ourselves moving. So come down and raise back up. Good. And come down and raise back up. Let's do 2 more of these. Down, raise back up, down, raise back up. Wonderful. And then we'll come to our starting position. We're gonna come back to the top of our mat and we're gonna get into our warrior poses. So the stool can be really nice because what you can do with the stool is either just have it there for safety or you can use it as a way to adjust your poses. You straddle the stool, and then you can get into these poses by sitting on the stool, and then you can raise yourself up and lower back down. So this is a little more advanced than the chair, but you have somewhere to land if you feel like you're not able to get into these poses. So warrior 2, we're rising up, but if that stool's right there, if we feel a little shaky, we don't have to worry, we can sit down into this stool. You can also easily change directions by having the stool underneath you. So this is the modification. So for warrior 2, we're gonna sit in warrior 2. Your arch is perpendicular on the left foot, right is facing forward, and we'll rise up. Then we'll come back down, and then we'll rise up. Let's go through 2 of these. Come back down, and rise up. Come back down, and rise up. Wonderful. And then we're gonna go ahead and switch sides by coming to the top of our mat. Make sure you don't fall over your stool as you're stepping over it. Left foot is straight, right foot is perpendicular, and we'll sink into it, sit on that stool, rise up, and sit back down. Rise up, and sit back down. Wonderful. One more time, rise up, and sit back down. Beautiful. So now we're gonna come to the top of the mat. We're gonna move that stool back in front of us for our triangle pose. So for triangle pose, remember, it's gonna keep that leg straight. So I want you to put your hands on that stool and step back into warrior two. You're then gonna extend that leg and put more of your weight into, so this is starting at the hardest part of chair. So we have here, or we can lower down a little bit closer and put it on our shin. We always know we can have that support to push ourselves back up with that stool. So hands on the stool or on your shin, and we'll rest here for a few breaths. Wonderful. And then we'll rise back up, warrior two, or just straight back into a standing mountain at the top of our mat. Then we come into triangle, so you can use that stool, step back into warrior two, extend that front knee, and we have triangle on the left. So our hand can be on the stool or on our shin. Stool or shin. Good, we're gonna take a few breaths here, wherever's comfortable for you. Big breath in and out. Big breath in and out. Wonderful, and then we'll rise back up, step to the top of your mat for a nice forward fold, or for a nice tall mountain, sorry about that. Wonderful. So those are some of our modifications with the stool. So we're now gonna push that out of the way. So we're gonna go to the next more advanced, which is blocks. Again, blocks on Amazon, $5–10. I wouldn't go spend a ton of money on cork. We have some in here, but cork blocks, because those are very expensive and you don't use them once you get past this stage. So for these, we have tall mountain. So we're gonna keep these here at the top of our mat. And again, if we're at this point, we're not as worried about balance. So we're coming up for tall mountain. And then when we want to forward fold, we're gonna exhale, forward fold. And we're gonna put our hands on these blocks to help us bring the floor to our hands. So maybe you're not quite as flexible yet and you wanna protect your low back. You put these blocks here for a nice forward fold and protect your low back. Inhale, rise up, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Good. We'll go through a few of these. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. If you're still using a chair or a stool, just go through the same modifications that I already showed you. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Wonderful. And then we're gonna rise all the way up. Now we're gonna show you down dog with blocks. So for down dog, you're going to place them so they're closer to the ground. You're gonna place your hands on top of them and step back for down dog. So this just takes a little bit of pressure off your shoulders, but it's more advanced than the chair and the stool. If you wanna shift forward into plank pose, you just shift a little forward. Same with the chair and the stool, just shift a little bit, putting more pressure in your shoulders. Abs are tight the whole time. So shift forward into a nice plank pose. Good, and shift back to down dog. Then we'll look at our hands and we're gonna walk our feet to the top of the mat, adjust those blocks again for a forward fold. Wonderful, and then we rise up and take a nice breath. Now the modification for chair pose with blocks is to support your hips and your knees a little bit more. So you're gonna put that block either this direction or this direction in between your knees, and you're gonna squeeze. This forces you to contract your pelvic floor, your inside thighs, and a little bit of your core. And we're gonna sink into chair pose and rise back up. Again, if we still have our stool or chair, we're using those modifications to sink as low as what's comfortable. Good, keep that block there and keep going. 2 more. Good. Last one. Wonderful. And then you rise back up and you take that block. Wonderful. So now for warrior two, again, if we're at the point of blocks, they're more for bringing the ground to you, not as much stability. So if you're not ready for the blocks because you still feel unstable, keep with the stool or the chair. So for warrior two, we're gonna step back into warrior two. And the block is really just there in case you need it. We don't really use them for Warrior 2. You can always, if you feel like you need a little extra range of motion, you can always put your foot on the block, and that way you have a little more ability to get that knee bent, but then you have to get off the block. So for Warrior 2, there's not much modifications for the blocks. It's really just getting as low as what's comfortable for you. And if you need the stool or the chair, use that modification. Good. So in Warrior 2, we're squeezing, we're loving it. Wonderful. We step to the top of the mat, and then we're going to go ahead and switch sides, Warrior 2 on the left. Shoulder blades engaged, and you're getting as low as what's comfortable for you. We'll breathe a few times here. Wonderful. And we'll step to the top of the mat. Beautiful. From here, I'll show you triangle pose with the blocks. Triangle pose with blocks is really great. So triangle pose when we are ready to get this low to the ground. So we have the ability to put our hands on our thigh, our shin, or so you don't put too much stress on your body, you just put your hand on a block. This is very similar to the stool. It's just a little lower, so it adds a little extra oomph to your workout. If you're not ready for the block, go back to the stool or the chair. Good, and then we rise back up and we switch sides. Step back, extend that front knee, and again, we can put it on our thigh, our shin, or take the stress off the body, put it on a block. Good, we take a few breaths here. Wonderful, and then step to the top of the mat. And we say, Namaste, beaches. So that is gonna be the conclusion to our very basic poses in yoga, using some modifications to make it a little easier. All right, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed that video. Again, very basic, very slow, just gets you prepped and ready, and the ability to get off the couch and move a little bit more. We all need to move at every stage of life. So whether you're new to working out, you're in the little bit older population, or maybe the injured population, these poses can get you prepped for the more challenging yoga poses. We still have a ways to go. We now have 5 more classes that we're going to do, and each one's going to focus a little bit more on different body parts, and each time we're going to make it a little more advanced and hopefully take away some of these modifications and get you advanced to the next step. My aim is that for when you start at one level, so let's say you're starting at the chair, by the time we're done, you're at the lowest part of the chair or working towards the stool. From the stool to the blocks, from the blocks to nothing. So if you have any questions or concerns, follow us on our website, link down below, and hopefully we see you guys next time on the mat. If you know of anybody who you think would really enjoy or benefit from these very basic poses, share this video so that way we can get some more people joining in on our namastand. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, namaste, beaches.